Hi, so in this video, I want to talk about the operation and function of the XLR audio module that we use to capture high quality audio from professional microphones on the XC15. And in our layout here, we've got the output of the XC15's display. So you can see the meters and the adjustments that are taking place. And then also in the overhead, you see here, we've got, the top-down view of the audio module that's connected to the XC15 for the purpose of the video. This audio module is connected to the camera using the multi-pin cable that you check out from the CER. Remember, if you don't have the multi-pin cable, you won't get any sound coming from the audio module. You need to connect it. It's not connected by the hot shoe. Like, you need the multi-pin cable to connect it. Also, in this view, you're not able to see the XLR connections. So professional microphones are typically connected using these kinds of connections. They refers to XLR, which is the left, right, and ground pins in a 3-pin configuration. Here's the bottom of the Shure Beta 57, this dynamic microphone that we've seen before. The pins are in this orientation, so the cable only goes in one way. You can't put the cable in upside down. Well, you could if you forced it, but if you force it, you'll break it. So don't force it. Rotate the cable until the pins seat in the socket, and you'll notice there's a little notch. And the little notch, they line up, and the cable goes in. And you push the cable in until you hear it click. And now the cable is seated and it is in, and it's not going to come out. You could pull it out by breaking it, by forcing it, but don't do that. To remove it, there's a button right here that it depresses a latch so that you can pull the cable out. Just very little bit of force will have the cable come out. The inputs on the XC15 audio module are very similar. There are two XLR inputs, one labeled input 1, one labeled input 2. Then the module connects to the camera using the multi-pin cable. So right now, this cable that I was just messing around with is going to connect to the microphone that we're going to listen to, and the other end is plugged into input number 1 on the audio module. So we are good to look at it, right, to see what we're gonna do here. Now, you might notice, you wouldn't notice unless I pointed out because it's very small, but on the audio meter section of the XC15 display, you'll see where it says input 1, input 2. Now, when that changed to input 1, input 2, when I plugged in the audio module, the XC15 knows that you're connected to the audio module, and it's telling you that that's where the input is. If it was unplugged and we had the Marantz microphone plugged in, it would say mic 1, 2. If it was nothing plugged in, it would say internal left, internal right. So when the audio module is plugged in, the XC15 knows it, and it will supersede other inputs in favor of the audio module in that order. Just like if you don't have a microphone plugged in, it'll default to the internal mic. When you do plug a microphone into the 3.5mm jack, it will automatically override that and see the microphone. If you plug the audio module in, it will override that and it will see the audio module. So I want to talk about this interface. Now, you might notice that if we click the function button on the display and we come down to the audio section, it now is grayed out and it says cannot change settings. You cannot set the audio level coming into the camera on the function screen because the controls are on the audio module right here. So once the audio module is plugged into the camera, it overrides this function and you have to set your levels on the module, not in the camera, which is kind of nice. So let me close out of function screen. We'll go back to the main screen. All right. Now, the audio module is broken up into two sections, right? There's a little bit of line here in between here, this raised line between input 1 and input 2. These are all the controls for whatever microphone is plugged into input 1, and these are all the controls for whatever microphone is plugged in to input 2. the first thing I want to bring your attention to is this switch right here. This 3-position switch has 3 settings: line, mic, and mic plus 48V. And I want to describe to you what these different settings are and when you would use what setting. The line setting means that the signal that's coming in through the XLR input is a line level input. A line level input is not loud enough for you to come out of a speaker, but rather the output of a piece of audio equipment, a mixing board, a PA system, a stereo receiver, a CD player, but on a professional level, right? It would be plus 12 decibels line level input, because audio signals have levels, right? So there's mic level, there's line level, then there's amplification. So a line level input is how loud a signal is coming out of a piece of audio equipment. A mic level input is much, much quieter than a line level input, because this microphone here, this dynamic microphone that doesn't need any power, that transduces acoustic sounds into electrical impulses, does so at very, very low levels. Those levels have to be amplified in order to be recorded, or they need to be amplified acoustically and with loudspeakers. So if you were to if you were to set this input to line, and you plugged a microphone into the camera, it would be very, very quiet, so quiet you couldn't hear it. And you wouldn't be able to turn the volume up loud enough to hear it. But if you set the input to mic because you were waiting for a microphone level input, and then you plug the output from a mixing console into the camera, it would overload the channel. It would be way too loud and it would distort. And you wouldn't even be able to turn the volume, the gain low enough to get good sound. So you have a selector switch to tell the camera what level of input it's getting. So if you're coming from a mixing board, let's say we were coming from, we were recording a theatrical performance or a concert, and we were going to take the audio from the front of house mix that was being mixed by an audio engineer for the room, coming out of the mixing board and into the camera. We can do that, but that would be a line level input. So we need to make sure that we set this switch to the line position. But in the field, when we're recording dialogue with microphones, generally, we're not taking line level inputs. We're taking mic level inputs. So we need to set the switch to the mic position. In the case of this dynamic microphone, the mic level position is the position we would want to select, because this is a microphone and it's getting a mic level input. If we were going to receive a signal from this microphone, if we were going to receive a signal from my microphone that I have right here, this is a condenser microphone. This microphone requires power in order to function. This microphone doesn't. So because this condenser microphone requires power in order to function, many microphones do require power. Commonly shotgun microphones, lavalier microphones that you would use to record dialogue, shotgun microphones that you would put on a boom pole and put overhead in order to record dialogue, they do require power. Well, fortunately, the camera is capable of administering that power and delivering it through the XLR cable out of the camera and into the microphone over the XLR cable. And it does this by activating what's called phantom power. Phantom power is denoted here on the 3-position switch by mic plus 48V, or 48 volts of phantom power. Now, if you plug the cable into a dynamic microphone like this and you have the phantom power on, nothing bad will happen. It won't break the microphone, but you will be draining your battery because it will be pushing phantom power to the output to the microphone when it doesn't need to. And it's a mismatch of what's needed. However, if you have your 3-position switch set to the mic position and you plug in a condenser mic like this microphone that I'm speaking into, right? This one right here, you won't get any sound, because you will not have the necessary phantom power, 48 volts a second, 48 volts over phantom power to the condenser mic to energize the magnets, to create the magnetic field, to transduce acoustic sounds into electrical impulses. It won't work. So we want to set our level selector switch appropriately for what we are going to be recording. So input number 1 on the module is going to get this dynamic mic. That means that we are expecting a mic level input. So I've set the level selector switch to mic. It's not a condenser mic, so I don't need power. So it's on mic. It's not on mic plus 48V. So that's step number 1. Step number 2 is to plug in our microphone, which I'm going to do. Here's our microphone. I'm going to plug it in. I'm going to push the cable until it clicks. And here I have my microphone. Now you'll see, now that I've plugged it in on the meters on the xc15, you see the meters moving, and there's nothing unusual about this. Let me just see if I got audio over here in my streamer. 1, 2. Okay, I do. All right. So I'm holding this. I look like the activities director of a cruise ship, talking into my dynamic microphone and looking at you. Even though technically I'm talking into the condenser mic, that's what you're hearing at the moment. You're hearing my desk mic, not this, but we're looking at the meters moving, and you see, because this microphone doesn't require power, it's getting signal and the meters are moving. Now, there are 2 other controls on the module. This one right here, which has a 2-position switch, says A and M. That's for auto, A for auto and M for manual. And then this gain knob that goes from 0 to 10. Now, if I spin that wheel down to 0, my signal is gone. I no longer have the meters moving, right? If I select this gain wheel all the way up, you're going to see that level's pretty high. And if you were to listen to that audio, it's going to sound pretty distorted, because every time I'm speaking, I'm pinning that meter all the way to the right. That's too loud. It's not what we want. So what we want to do is we want to roll this volume back so that when I'm speaking into the microphone, that my voice at its loudest is peaking somewhere between -10 and -20 dB. Now you'll see that decibels on the meter are measured in minus decibels, because 0, once you hit 0, you are distorting there's no more space. It's going to start to break up. So what we want is for when I'm speaking into the microphone, for the meter to be peaking between -20 and -10, and that will give us enough headroom, because if I do hit the mic on the harder side and it does get a little loud, it's not going to cause too much of a problem. So I'm going to turn the studio mic off, and I'm going to switch over to the dynamic mic so you can hear. So this is the dynamic mic that you're hearing. Now, as I can roll that, and that volume disappeared. So now I'm going to roll it back up until we see the meter sort of peaking in between -10 and -20. So what you're hearing right now is me coming through this dynamic mic here. I'll tap it so you can hear it. Right. So we are hearing this dynamic mic plugged in to the xc15 in the audio module with the level selector switch set correctly and the gain knob adjusted so that the volume coming in is correct. This leads us over to this final control, this 2-position switch for auto versus manual. Now, in the previous video about the Marantz microphone, we learned that what auto does is it automatically adjusts the gain of a microphone in so that when the sound is quiet, the camera will automatically turn the gain up, and when the sound is loud, the camera will automatically turn the gain down in order to obtain a clean signal up and down. Now, there are some pitfalls to doing this, because if you're in a very quiet environment, it will crank up the gain on the input, and you could get more hiss or more noise. If it's very loud, and it'll turn the gain all the way down, and you might have trouble piecing out, the sound that you want to get. So we don't always shoot on auto, but if the recording of dialogue is unpredictable, meaning we have lots of loud louds and quiet quiets, and we don't know exactly what's going to happen, these functions are pretty useful. So you'll notice I'm going to switch it over to auto, and we're going to see. When I switch it over to auto now, this gain knob no longer has any function. It doesn't change the gain, right? It doesn't make it any quieter or louder, but the signal that is coming in from the microphone is automatically set by the camera. And what it basically guarantees is that it will adjust that gain to prevent distortion or overmodulation. That doesn't necessarily guarantee that you're going to get good quality audio, because that is dependent on a lot of things. It's dependent on the quality of the microphone. It's dependent on the environment. It's depending on how noisy it is. And those are the things that are the variables. So for example, let me switch over to my studio microphone. So this studio microphone that you're listening to is plugged into an XC15 that is set on auto. Now, this microphone, this is an Audio-Technica AT2 2020, is a very nice microphone. It's not incredibly expensive. I picked it up on Amazon, I think, for about $150, but it's a pretty quiet microphone, and the preamps in the XC15 are pretty good. So I'm able to set this microphone on auto and be pretty confident that I don't need to do any sort of noise cancellation in an edit. I don't need to apply any effects or mess around with it too much in order to get good sound for these videos. When you're setting up audio on a camera, you kind of have to look into it critically. You have to listen carefully to the sound that you're getting, carefully listen on headphones. And you'll notice that I have a pair of headphones right here that I monitored all of my activity using these headphones in the XC15 so that I could hear what the sound was going to sound like. There shouldn't be any surprises in the file. What you hear in the file, what you hear in your headphones is what is going to the file. So wear your headphones and keep and be a critical listener for quality. So if you're listening on your headphones and you're shooting a scene outside and there's an airplane flying overhead, and you may not realize that it's disrupting the dialogue of your shot, but a good sound person or a good camera operator who's listening on headphones will notify the director, like, we have to stop because there's a plane and it's interrupting the scene. We should do another take. So always wear your headphones. Now, these two inputs have duplicated controls, so you can do you can have two different mics. If you have people interviewed, you can put one person on channel 1, one person on channel 2. You could actually go into the camera and change the settings in the menu so that whatever is getting plugged in to input number 1 goes to both channels on the file. You could change the headphone monitoring so that you're only listening to channel 1, or you can change it so you're listening to channel 1 on one side and channel 2 on another side, or you can set it up so that both channels are in each ear, 1 and 2 on both sides. It's very variable. The goal here, though, is for you to be introduced to this technology so that you can check out the camera, plug in a microphone, put in a pair of headphones, and record some sound with good quality so that when you work on your projects, you can go out into the field and you can record good quality audio for your projects. Thank you very much for your attention. See you next time.